Francis Lewis students, I want to welcome you to Queensborough Community College. I'm very excited about the beginning of the high school Big Read initiative. My name is Michelle Cuomo, and we'll be talking to you. You're Michelle too? All right. Do you spell it with one L or two? Two. I spell it with one. We're going to be telling you a lot about what's going on, but first, I want to introduce to you the president of Queensborough Community College, Dr. Eduardo Marti.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Generally at Queensborough Community College, I don't get that when I first talk to you guys. So it is very nice to have you here, to welcome you to our campus. Needless to say, we're very, very excited about this initiative. The association between our college and Francis Lewis is very, very, very important. And you are sort of like the pioneers. You're the first ones that are starting with this project. And frankly, what is going to happen is that we're going to have you for 9 weeks. You are now Queensborough Community College students. Huh? Yeah. So you can go home and tell your buds that, you're in college now. You were accepted. But really, what this is designed to do is to give you a sense of college life, to use this wonderful book as a guide, to see how different disciplines come together, and to use this as it's a trial for you as you go forward to the next phase of your life. So we're very, very excited about this. I really would like to very much welcome you to our campus for these 9 weeks. Feel free to be part of our campus. And if you see any of the basketball team women, tell them that congratulations, because they are the CUNY champs. And if you see anybody from the baseball team, tell them good luck. We have really a really good school spirit here. So welcome to the campus, and good luck with the project. Thank you.
I'd next like to introduce you to Ms. Bobby Brower, who is the director of College Now, the ASAP program, and high school initiative at the Queensborough Community College campus.
I don't know. Come on. Thank you. So, welcome. I know that each of you signed up for something that is unknown. And so I applaud you for taking this giant leap of faith in joining something that is going to be, I promise you, more exciting than you could ever have imagined. While you're here, you are now, as the president said, college students. As college students, there's a certain decorum when you're on campus that we expect you to follow. We trust that you're going to come to class on time every week. The faculty here have made an enormous input and put in lots of time and effort to create a very special program for you. And I believe that at the end of this, you're going to want to come back. You're going to want to do more. You're going to be telling your parents, your friends, your teachers at Francis Lewis High School that you can't even believe what you did here. So I'm not going to take up a lot of time. I'm going to give the microphone back, and I wish you luck. I hope to see you during the next 9 weeks, and just have a ball.
I'm not going to talk too much more. I really want to introduce you to your faculty and let them get started on the wonderful curriculum we've planned for you. But first, I want to let you know a little background. I want you to know that you're part of something beyond Francis Lewis, beyond Queensborough. You're something that's part of an initiative that is taking place across the whole nation and internationally, and that is the Big Read. The Big Read is an initiative that is sponsored by the National Endowment for the Arts to encourage people to return to reading for pleasure. So the Big Read, you have a bookmark in your folder, and it shows 30 different books that are being read all across the country. So as we read the book, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, people in Texas are reading it, California, people in Egypt are reading it in different formats. Some of them are just reading it aloud and enjoying it. Some of them are doing it in college classrooms. Some of them are doing it in libraries. It's being done in malls. So you're part of something bigger. And we at Queensborough chose The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien because we found that we knew our students liked it very much. And I'm going to introduce you to your 3 faculty members. The first faculty member I'm going to introduce you to is Professor Pobrick, and she will be the writing instructor for your 9 weeks, but she's also the project administrator for the Big Read on our campus, and so she can talk a little bit more about the book and why it's exciting, and as well as her curriculum. Ms. Pobrick?
Hi, everyone. I noticed how friendly you all were when I was greeting you upstairs. I'm very excited about that. Are you really? Well, good, because that's what we need today, and every Wednesday for the next 9 weeks, actually. I will be here as long as you're here. My name is Anita Pobrick. I studied creative writing at Sarah Lawrence College. It's a small liberal arts school in Westchester, not very far from here. Yes, Westchester. You'll realize very soon that I enunciate all of my words because I will be your writing instructor, and we will be doing a lot of reading and writing together, actually, and a lot of math with Dr. Donna Baccio. This is... we're going to have tons of fun, I promise. Yes, I hope so too. With your cooperation, anything is possible. So today, this will sort of serve as an orientation. All of you have received a book and a folder that I packed personally for each and every one of you, in which you will find a study guide and a bookmark and a little calendar of events happening around campus in honor of the Big Read, which I, along with Dean Michelle Cuomo and some other people, planned. I want to first tell you a little bit about the Big Read. The Big Read, as Dean Cuomo said, is a grant-funded project by the National Endowments for the Arts. We received a certain amount of money, and we purchased over 1,200 books, all The Things They Carried, because this is the book that we chose. And we distributed them through organized efforts throughout our campus. So you are part of something really enormous, and many, many students on this campus are reading the same exact thing you're reading. This book is it's a soldier's account of the Vietnam War. And it challenges the theme of what is fiction, what is nonfiction, what do we do when we only have our memory to rely upon? How much can we trust our memory? It challenges the craft of creative writing itself, of storytelling, and I believe that you will all find something to love here. And today we're going to be reading the first story called The Things They Carried. I will be reading along with the other 2 faculty members, Jim Gieser and Donna Baccio, so that we can share that experience together. Because when we separate into our classes, we won't necessarily be reading the same stories. To tell you that all of the stories are the book is a compilation of short stories, meaning that all of the short stories can stand on their own. The book does not need to be read chronologically in order to be understood, meaning it does not need to be read from beginning to end. All the chapters are a short story that was previously and separately published and then compiled into this body of work. I look forward to you guys. I look forward to working with you guys. Do you guys look forward to working with me? What about the girls? Are the girls looking forward to working with me? Yeah! Wonderful. I can't wait. So I will introduce Dr. Donna Baccio, who will be working with you in mathematics. Okay? Give it up for Donna.
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to speak very briefly right now. I have a brief presentation later on, and I want everyone to realize at the end of this program that math can be fun and math can be relevant, which might not be the way that you thought about math from your previous courses. So later on, after we read the first chapter of the book and show a very short video, then I'll start talking about a little bit about what to expect in the math component of the course.
Come on, man. I don't need this, do I? Can you all hear me? Yeah. All right. Good news and bad news. What do you want first? Bad news? I guess you didn't watch MSNBC today, huh? Barack Obama's reinstituting the draft. What? Ooh. Isn't that interesting? One of the stories we're going to read from this book, The Things They Carry, is on Lady River. And we're going to learn what Tim O'Brien went through when he learned he was drafted. That's something you guys should think about. We don't have a draft right now. Doesn't mean we will never have one. Right? What's the good news? The good news? The books are free. You don't have to pay for the book. I look forward to working with all of you. I also put together a short video. I'm kind of really into technology, music, art, poetry, and creating videos. I created a short video, and hopefully you'll find it entertaining. We'll show it after we're done reading the first story. Okay? So sit back and enjoy it. We'll have a discussion afterwards. Okay? Yeah!
Do I need the mic?
Hi. I need the mic. I need the mic. I want to introduce you to 3 people who are going to be working with you throughout our time together. They are
Brooke. Where are you, Brooke? Hi, Brooke. Alex. And Ava. Brooke, Alex, and Ava are all queens. We're very proud of Brooke, Alex, and Ava. They are graduates of CUNY, some of them graduates of Queensborough. They have come back as tutors in our learning center, and they work with Queensborough students on a regular basis, tutoring in various subjects. But they're working with us. They'll be in our classrooms to serve as assistant faculty members. And I want to just say a little housekeeping. First of all, again, this room we're not supposed to have food or drink. And I know that you guys don't have break, possibly didn't have a break. So if you need to leave the room for any reason, talk to one of the tutors. They'll just keep track, and they'll be looking out for you to come back in 5 minutes. Bathrooms are downstairs and just to your right. So we have 3 hours. I'm not sure exactly if we're going to have break sessions or what, but if you need to leave, tell one of the 3, Brooke, Alex, or Ava, and they'll say, okay, see you in 5 minutes. Come back in 5 minutes. All right? That's all I think I have to say. So I just hope you all have such a wonderful experience. I feel such a good energy from you all. I'm really just filled with gratitude that you're here. I just don't know quite how to express it. But thank you, and I'll give it back to the faculty.
I like this. We're going to be reading the first story of the book called The Things They Carried. You guys are welcome to follow along, or if you just want to listen, that's cool. We thought it'd be really nice if we did a little reading for you guys today. So let's rock and roll, baby.
I'll get started with this part. Unlike my colleagues, I do need a microphone. All right, so I'm going to be starting with page 1 of the things they carried. If you want to follow along, actually, yes, it's on page 1. First Lieutenant Jimmy Cross carried letters from a girl named Martha, a junior at Mount St. Sebastian College in New Jersey. They were not love letters, but Lieutenant Cross was hoping, so he kept them folded in plastic at the bottom of his rucksack. In the late afternoon, after a day's march, he would dig his foxhole, wash his hands under a canteen, unwrap the letters, hold them with the tips of his fingers, and spend the last hour of light pretending. He would imagine romantic camping trips into the White Mountains in New Hampshire. He would sometimes taste the envelope flaps, knowing her tongue had been there. More than anything, he wanted Martha to love him as he loved her, but the letters were mostly chatty, elusive on the matter of love. She was a virgin, he was almost sure. She was an English major at Mount Sebastian, and she wrote beautifully about her professors and roommates and midterm exams, about her respect for Chaucer and her great affection for Virginia Woolf. She often quoted lines of poetry. She never mentioned the war except to say, "Jimmy, take care of yourself." The letters weighed 10 ounces. They were signed Love, Martha, but Lieutenant Cross understood that love was only a way of signing and did not mean what he sometimes pretended it meant. At dusk, he would carefully return the letters to his rucksack. Slowly, a bit distracted, he would get up and move among his men, checking the perimeter. Then at full dark, he would return to his hole and watch the night and wonder if Martha was a virgin. The things they carried were largely determined by necessity. Among the necessities, or near necessities, were P-38 can openers, pocket knives, heat tabs, wristwatches, dog tags, mosquito repellent, chewing gum, candy, cigarettes, salt tablets, packets of Kool-Aid, lighters, matches, sewing kits, military payment certificates, sea rations, and 2 or 3 canteens of water. Together, these items weighed 15 to 20 pounds, depending upon a man's habit or rate of metabolism. Henry Dobbins, who was a big man, carried extra rations. He was especially fond of canned peaches and heavy syrup over pound cake. Dave Jensen, who practiced field hygiene, carried a toothbrush, dental floss, and several hotel-sized bars of soap he'd stolen on R&R in Sydney, Australia. Ted Lavender, who was scared, carried tranquilizers until he was shot in the head outside the village of Tonkay in mid-April. By necessity, and because it was SOP, they all carried steel helmets that weighed 5 pounds, including the liner and camouflage cover. They carried the standard fatigue jackets and trousers. Very few carried underwear. On their feet, they carried jungle boots, 2.1 pounds. And Dave Jensen carried 3 pairs of socks and a can of Dr. Scholl's foot powder as a precaution against trench foot. Until he was shot, Ted Lavender carried 6 or 7 ounces of premium dope, which for him was a necessity. Mitchell Sanders, the RTO, carried condoms. Norman Bowker carried a diary. Rat Kiley carried comic books. Kiowa, a devout Baptist, carried an illustrated New Testament that had been presented to him by his father, who taught Sunday school in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. As a hedge against bad times, however, Kiowa also carried his grandfather's distrust of the white man, his grandfather's old hunting hatchet. Necessity dictated. Because the land was mined and booby-trapped, it was SOP for each man to carry a steel-centered, nylon-covered flak jacket which weighed 6.7 pounds, but which on hot days seemed much heavier. Because you could die so quickly, each man carried at least 1 large compress bandage, usually on the helmet for easy access. Because the nights were cold and because the monsoons were wet, each carried a green plastic poncho that could be used as a raincoat or ground sheet or makeshift tent. With its quilted liner, the poncho weighed almost 2 pounds, but it was worth every ounce. In April, for instance, when Ted Lavender was shot, they used his poncho to wrap him up, then to carry him across the paddy, then to lift him into the chopper that took him away. They were called legs or grunts. To carry something was to hump it, as when Lieutenant Jimmy Cross humped his love for Martha up the hills and through the swamps. In its intransitive form, to hunt meant to walk or to march, but it implied burdens far beyond the intransitive. Almost everyone humped photographs. In his wallet, Lieutenant Cross carried 2 photographs of Martha. The first was a Kodacolor snapshot signed Love, though he knew better. She stood against a brick wall. Her eyes were gray and neutral, her lips slightly open as she stared straight on at the camera. At night, sometimes, Lieutenant Cross wondered who had taken the picture because he knew she had boyfriends, because he loved her so much, and because he could see the shadow of the picture-taking spreading out against the brick wall. The second photograph had been clipped from the 1968 Mount Sebastian yearbook. It was an action shot, women's volleyball, and Martha was bent horizontal to the floor, reaching the palms of her hand in sharp focus, the tongue taut, the expression frank and competitive. There was no visible sweat. She wore white gym shorts. Her legs, he thought, were almost certainly the legs of a virgin, dry and without hair, the left knee cocked and carrying her entire weight, which was just over 100 pounds. Lieutenant Cross remembered touching that left knee. A dark theater, he remembered, and the movie was Bonnie and Clyde, and Martha wore a tweed skirt, and during the final scene, when he touched her knee, she turned and looked at him in a sad, sober way that made him pull his hand back, but he would always remember the feel of that tweed skirt and the knee beneath it, and the sound of the gunfire that killed Bonnie and Clyde. How embarrassing it was, how slow and oppressive. He remembered kissing her goodnight at the dorm door. Right then, he thought, he should have done something brave. He should have carried her to the top of the stairs and tied her to the bed and touched her left knee all night long. He should have risked it. Whenever he looked at the photographs, he thought of new things he should have done. What they carried was partly a function of rank, partly of field specialty. As a first lieutenant and platoon leader, Jimmy Cross carried a compass, maps, code books, binoculars, and a .45 caliber pistol that weighed 2.9 pounds fully loaded. He carried a strobe light and the responsibility for the lives of his men. As an RTO, Mitchell Sanders carried the PRC-25 radio, a killer, 26 pounds with its battery. As a medic, Rat Kiley carried a canvas satchel filled with morphine and plasma and malaria tablets and surgical tape and comic books and all the things a medic must carry, including M&Ms for especially bad wounds, for a total weight of nearly 20 pounds. As a big man, therefore a machine gunner, Henry Dobbins carried the M60, which weighed 23 pounds unloaded, but which was almost always loaded. In addition, Dobbins carried between 10 and 15 pounds of ammunition draped in belts across his chest and shoulders. As PFCs or Spec 4s, most of them were common grunts and carried the standard M16 gas-operated assault rifle. The weapon weighed 7.5 pounds unloaded, 8.2 pounds with its full 20-round magazine. Depending on numerous factors such as topography and psychology, the rifleman carried anywhere from 12 to 20 magazines, usually in cloth bandoliers, adding on another 8.4 pounds at minimum, 14 pounds at maximum. When it was available, they also carried M16 maintenance gear, rods and steel brushes and swabs and tubes of LSA oil, all of which weighed about a pound. Among the grunts, some carried the M79 grenade launcher, 5.9 pounds unloaded, a reasonably light weapon except for the ammunition, which was heavy. A single round weighed 10 ounces. The typical load was 25 rounds. But Ted Lavender, who was scared, carried 34 rounds when he was shot and killed outside Tonquet, and he went down under an exceptional burden, more than 20 pounds of ammunition, plus the flak jacket and helmet and rations and water and toilet paper and tranquilizers and all the rest, plus the unweighed fear. He was dead weight. There was no twitching or flopping. Kiowa, who saw it happen, said it was like watching a rock fall, a big sandbag or something. Just boom, then down. Not like the movies where the dead guy rolls around and does fancy spins and goes ass over tea kettle. Not like that, Kiowa said. The poor bastard just flat-fuck fell. Boom, down. Nothing else. It was a bright morning in mid-April. Lieutenant Cross felt the pain. He blamed himself. They stripped off Lavender's canteens and ammo, all the heavy things, and Rat Kiley said the obvious. The guy's dead, and Mitchell Sanders used his radio to report 1 U.S. KIA and to request a chopper. Then they wrapped Lavender in his poncho. They carried him out to a dry paddy, established security, and sat smoking the dead man's dope until the chopper came. Lieutenant Cross kept to himself. He pictured Martha's smooth young face, thinking he loved her more than anything, more than his men, and now Ted Lavender was dead because he loved her so much and could not stop thinking about her. When the dust-off arrived, they carried Lavender aboard. Afterward, they burned Tonquet. They marched until dusk, then dug their holes, And that night, Kiowa kept explaining how you had to be there, how fast it was, how the poor guy just dropped like so much concrete. Boom, down, he said, like cement. In addition to the 3 standard weapons, the M60, the M16, and the M79, they carried whatever presented itself, whatever seemed appropriate as a means of killing or staying alive. They carried catch as catch can. At various times in various situations, they carried M14s and CAR-15s and Swedish Ks and grease guns and captured AK-47s and Chicums and RPGs and Simonov carbines and black market Uzis and 38 caliber Smith & Wesson handguns and 66 millimeter LAWs and shotguns and silencers and blackjacks and bayonets and C4 plastic explosives. Lee Strong carried a slingshot, a weapon of last resort, he called it. Mitchell Sanders carried brass knuckles. Kiowa carried his grandfather's feathered hatchet. Every third or fourth man carried a Claymore anti-personnel mine, 3.5 pounds with its firing device. They all carried fragmentation grenades, 14 ounces each. They all carried at least one M18 colored smoke grenade, 24 ounces. Some carried CS or tear gas grenades. They carried white phosphorus grenades. They carried all they could bear and then some, including a silent awe for the terrible power of the things they carried.
In the first week of April, before Lavender died, Lieutenant Jimmy Cross received a good luck charm from Martha. It was a simple pebble, an ounce at most. Smooth to the touch, it was a milky white color with flecks of orange and violet, oval-shaped like a miniature egg. In the accompanying letter, Martha wrote that she had found the pebble on the Jersey shoreline, precisely where the land touched water at high tide, where things came together but also separated. It was this separate but together quality, she wrote, that had inspired her to pick up the pebble and to carry it in her breast pocket for several days, where it seemed weightless, and then to send it through the mail by air as a token of her truest feelings for him. Lieutenant Cross found this romantic, but he wondered what her truest feelings were exactly and what she meant by separate but together. He wondered how the tides and waves had come into play on that afternoon along the Jersey shoreline when Martha saw the pebble and bent down to rescue it from geology. He imagined her bare feet. Martha was a poet with the poet's sensibilities, and her feet would be brown and bare, the toenails unpainted, the eyes chilly and somber like the ocean in March. And though it was painful, he wondered who had been with her that afternoon. He imagined a pair of shadows moving along the strip of sand where things came together but also separated. It was phantom jealousy, he knew, but he couldn't help himself. He loved her so much. On the march, through the hot days of early April, he carried the pebble in his mouth, turning it with his tongue, tasting sea salt and moisture. His mind wandered. He had difficulty keeping his attention on the war. On occasion, he would yell at his men to spread out the column, to keep their eyes open, but then he would slip away into daydreams, just pretending, walking barefoot along the Jersey shore, with Martha carrying nothing. He would feel himself rising, sun and waves and gentle winds, all love and lightness. What they carried varied by mission. When a mission took them to the mountains, they carried mosquito netting, machetes, canvas tarps, and extra bug juice. If a mission seemed especially hazardous, or if it involved a place they knew to be bad, they carried everything they could. In certain heavily mined AOs, where the land was dense with toe poppers and bouncing betties, they took turns humping a 28-pound mine detector. With its headphones and big sensing plate, the equipment was a stress on the lower back and shoulders, awkward to handle, often useless because of the shrapnel in the earth. But they often carried it anyway, partly for safety, partly for the illusion of safety. On ambush or other night missions, they carried peculiar little odds and ends. Kiowa always took along his New Testament and a pair of moccasins for silence. Dave Jensen carried night sight vitamins high in carotene. Lee Strong carried his slingshot. Ammo, he claimed, would never be a problem. Rat Kiley carried brandy and M&M's candy. Until he was shot, Ted Lavender carried the Starlight scope, which weighed 6.3 pounds, with its aluminum carrying case. Henry Dobbins carried his girlfriend's pantyhose wrapped around his neck as a comforter. They all carried ghosts. When dark came, they would move out, single file across the meadows and paddies to their ambush, coordinates where they would quietly set up the claymores and lie down and spend the night waiting. Other missions were more complicated and required special equipment. In mid-April, it was their mission to search out and destroy the elaborate tunnel complexes in the Than Key area south of Chu Lai. To blow the tunnels, they carried 1-pound blocks of pentrite high explosive, 4 blocks to a man, 68 pounds in all. They carried wiring, detonators, and battery-powered clackers. Dave Jensen carried earplugs. Most often, before blowing the tunnels, they were ordered by higher command to search them, which was considered bad news, but by and large, they just shrugged and carried out orders. Because he was a big man, Henry Dobbins was excused from tunnel duty. The others would draw numbers. Before Lavender died, there were 17 men in the platoon, and whoever drew the number 17 would strip off his gear and crawl in headfirst with a flashlight and Lieutenant Cross's .45 caliber pistol. The rest of them would fan out as security. They would sit down or kneel, not facing the hole, listening to the ground beneath them, imagining cobwebs and ghosts, whatever was down there. The tunnel walls squeezing in, how the flashlight seemed impossibly heavy in the hand and how it was tunnel vision in the very strictest sense, compression in all ways, even time, and how you had to wiggle in, ass and elbow, a swallowed-up feeling, and how you found yourself worrying about odd things. Will your flashlight go dead? Do rats carry rabies? If you screamed, how far would the sound carry? Would your buddies hear it? Would they have the courage to drag you out? In some respects, though, not many, the waiting was worse than the tunnel itself. Imagination was a killer. On April 16, when Lee Strunk drew the number 17, he laughed and muttered something and went down quickly. The morning was hot and very still. Not good, Kiowa said. He looked at the tunnel opening, then out across a dry paddy toward the village of Than Key. Nothing moved. No clouds or birds or people. As they waited, the men smoked and drank Kool-Aid, not talking much, feeling sympathy for Lee Strunk, but also feeling the luck of the draw. You win some, you lose some, said Mitchell Sanders. And sometimes you settle for a rain check. It was a tired line, and no one laughed. Henry Dobbins ate a tropical chocolate bar. Ted Lavender popped a tranquilizer and went off to pee. After 5 minutes, Lieutenant Jimmy Cross moved to the tunnel, leaned down, and examined the darkness. Trouble, he thought. A cave-in, maybe. And then suddenly, without willing it, he was thinking about Martha. The stresses and fractures, the quick collapse, the two of them buried alive under all that weight. Dense, crushing love. Kneeling, watching the whole, he tried to concentrate on Lee Strunk and the war, all the dangers, but his love was too much for him. He felt paralyzed. He wanted to sleep inside her lungs and breathe her blood and be smothered. He wanted her to be a virgin and not a virgin all at once. He wanted to know her, intimate secrets. Why poetry? Why so sad? Why that grayness in her eyes? Why so alone? Not lonely, just alone, riding her bike across campus or sitting off by herself in the cafeteria, even dancing. She danced alone, and it was the aloneness that filled him with love. He remembered telling her that one evening, how she nodded and looked away, and how later, when he kissed her, she received the kiss without returning it, her eyes wide open, not afraid, not a virgin's eyes, just flat and uninvolved. Lieutenant Cross gazed at the tunnel, but he was not there. He was buried with Martha under the white sand at the Jersey shore. They were pressed together, and the pebble in his mouth was her tongue. He was smiling. Vaguely, he was aware of how quiet the day was, the sullen paddies. Yet he could not bring himself to worry about matters of security. He was beyond that. He was just a kid at war, in love. He was 24 years old. He couldn't help it. A few moments later, Lee Strunk crawled out of the tunnel. He came up grinning, filthy but alive. Lieutenant Cross nodded and closed his eyes while the others clapped clapped Strunk on the back and made jokes about rising from the dead. Worms, Rat Kiley said. Right out of the grave. Fucking zombie. The men laughed. They all felt great relief. Spook City, said Mitchell Sanders. Lee Strunk made a funny ghost sound, a kind of moaning yet very happy, and right then when Strunk made that happy moaning sound, when he went, ahoo, right then Ted Lavender was shot in the head on his way back from peeing. He lay with his mouth open. The teeth were broken. There was a swollen black bruise under his left eye. The cheekbone was gone. Oh, shit, Rat Kiley said. The guy's dead. The guy's dead, he kept saying, which seemed profound. The guy's dead. I mean, really. The things they carried were determined to some extent by superstition. Lieutenant Cross carried his good luck pebble. Dave Jensen carried a rabbit's foot. Norman Bowker, otherwise a very gentle person, carried a thumb that had been presented to him as a gift by Mitchell Sanders. The thumb was dark brown, rubbery to the touch, and weighed 4 ounces at most. It had been cut from a VC corpse, a boy of 15 or 16. They'd found him at the bottom of an irrigation ditch, badly burned, flies in his mouth and eyes. The boy wore black shorts and sandals. At the time of his death, he had been carrying a pouch of rice, a rifle, and 3 magazines of ammunition. You want my opinion, Mitchell Sanders said. There's a definite moral here. He put his hand out on the dead boy's wrist. He was quiet for a time, as if counting a pulse. Then he patted the stomach, almost affectionately, and used Kiowa's hunting hatchet to remove the thumb. Henry Dobbins asked what the moral was. Moral? You know, moral. Sanders wrapped the thumb in toilet paper and handed it across to Norman Bowker. There was no blood. Smiling, he kicked the boy's head, watched the flies scatter, and said, It's like with that old TV show, Paladin. Have gun, will travel. Henry Dobbins thought about it. Yeah, well, he finally said, I don't see no moral. There it is, man. Fuck off. They carried USO stationery and pencils and pens. They carried sterno, safety pins, trip flares, signal flares, spools of wire, razor blades chewing tobacco, liberated joss sticks, and statuettes of the smiling Buddha, candles, grease pencils, the stars and stripes, fingernail clippers, psyops leaflets, bush hats, bolos, and much more. Twice a week, when the resupply choppers came in, they carried hot chow in green Mermite cans and large canvas bags filled with ice, beer, and soda pop. They carried plastic water containers, each with a 2-gallon capacity. Mitchell Sanders carried a set of starched tiger fatigues for a special occasion. Henry Dobbins carried Black Flag Insitais. Dave Jensen carried empty sandbags that could be filled at night for added protection. Lee Strunk carried tanning lotion. Some things they carried in common. Taking turns, they carried the big PRC-77 Scrambler radio, which weighed 30 pounds, with its battery. They shared the weight of memory. They took up what others could no longer bear. Often they carried each other, the wounded or weak. They carried infections. They carried chess sets, basketballs, Vietnamese English dictionaries, insignia of rank, bronze stars and purple hearts, plastic cards imprinted with the code of conduct. They carried diseases, among them malaria and dysentery. They carried lice and ringworm and leeches and patty algae and various roots and molds. They carried the land itself, Vietnam, the place, the soil, a powdery orange-red dust that covered their boots and fatigues and faces. They carried the sky, the whole atmosphere. They carried it, the humidity, the monsoons, the stinks of fungs and decay, all of it. They carried gravity. They moved like mules. By daylight, they took sniper fire. At night, they were mortared. But it was not battle. It was just the endless march, village to village, without purpose, nothing won or lost. They marched for the sake of the march. They plodded along, slowly, dumbly, leaning forward against the heat, unthinking, all blood and bone, simple grunts, soldiering with their legs, toiling up the hills and down into the paddies and across the rivers and up again and down, just humping one step and then the next and then another, but no volition, no will, because it was automatic. It was anatomy, and the war was entirely a matter of posture and carriage, and hump was everything, a kind of inertia, a kind of emptiness. a dullness of desire and intellect and conscience and hope and human sensibility. Their principles were in their feet. Their calculations were biological. They had no sense of strategy or mission. They searched the villages without knowing what to look for, not caring, kicking over jars of rice, frisking children and old men, blowing tunnels, sometimes setting fires and sometimes not, then forming up and moving on to the next village, then other villages where it would always be the same. They carried their own lives. The pressures were enormous. In the heat of early afternoon, they would remove their helmets and flak jackets, walking bare, which was dangerous, but which helped ease the strain. They would often discard things along the route of march, purely for comfort. They would throw away rations, blow their claymores and grenades, no matter, because by nightfall, the resupply choppers would arrive with more of the same. Then a day or two later, still more fresh watermelons and crates of ammunition and sunglasses and woolen sweaters. The resources were stunning. Sparklers for the 4th of July. Colored eggs for Easter. It was the great American war chest, the fruits of science, the smokestacks, the canaries, the arsenals at Hartford, the Minnesota forests, the machine shops, the vast fields of corn and wheat. They carried like freight trains. They carried it on their backs and shoulders. And for all the ambiguities of Vietnam, all the mysteries and unknowns, there was at least the single abiding certainty that they would never be at a loss for things to carry.
After the chopper took Ted Lavender away, Lieutenant Jimmy Cross led his men into the village of Don Key. They burned everything. They shot chickens and dogs. They trashed the village well. They called in artillery and watched the wreckage. Then they marched for several hours through the hot afternoon. And then at dusk, while Kiowa explained how Lavender died, Lieutenant Cross found himself trembling. He tried not to cry. With his entrenching tool, which weighed 5 pounds, he began digging a hole in the earth. He felt shame. He hated himself. He had loved Martha more than his men, and as a consequence, Lavender was now dead. And this was something he would have to carry like a stone in his stomach for the rest of the war. All he could do was dig. He used his entrenching tool like an axe, slashing, feeling both love and hate, and then later, when it was full dark, he sat at the bottom of his foxhole and wept. It went on for a long while. In part, he was grieving for Ted Lavender, but mostly it was for Martha and for himself. Because she belonged to another world, which was not quite real, and because she was a junior at Mount Sebastian College in New Jersey, a poet and a virgin and uninvolved, and because he realized she did not love him and never would. Like cement, Kaiba whispered in the dark. I swear to God, boom, down, not a word. I've heard this, said Norman Bowker. A pissy, you know, still zipping himself up. Zipped while zipping. All right, fine, that's enough. Yeah, but you had to see it. The guy just, I heard, man. Cement, so why not just shut the fuck up? Kiowa shook his head sadly and glanced over on the hole where Lieutenant Jimmy Cross sat watching the night. The air was thick and wet. A warm, dense fog had settled over the paddies, and there was the stillness that precedes rain. After a time, Kiowa sighed. One thing for sure, he said. The lieutenant's in some deep hurt. I mean that crying jag, the way he was carrying on, it wasn't fake or anything. It was real heavy-duty hurt. The man cares. Sure, Norman Bowker said. Say what you want, the man does care. We all got problems. Not Lavender. No, I guess not, Bowker said. Do me a favor, though. Shut up. That's a smart Indian. Shut up. Shrugging, Kiowa pulled off his boots. He wanted to say more, just to lighten up his sleep. But instead, he opened his New Testament and arranged it beneath his head for a pillow. The fog made things seem hollow and unattached. He tried not to think about Ted Lavender, but then he was thinking how fast it was. No drama, down and dead, and how hard it was to feel anything except surprise. It seemed unchristian. He wished he could find some great sadness or even anger, but the emotions weren't there, and he couldn't make it happen. Mostly he felt pleased to be alive. He liked the smell of the New Testament under his cheek, the leather and ink and paper and glue, whatever the chemicals were. He liked hearing the sounds of night. Even his fatigue, it felt fine. The stiff muscles and the prickly awareness of his own body, a floating feeling. He enjoyed not being dead. Lying there, Kiowa admired Lieutenant Jimmy Cross's capacity for grief. He wanted to share the man's pain. He wanted to care as Jimmy Cross cared. And yet, when he closed his eyes, all he could think was boom down. And all he could feel was the pleasure of having his boots off and the fog curling in around him, and the damp soil and the Bible smells and the plush comfort of night. After a moment, Norman Bowker sat up in the dark. "What the hell," he said. "You want to talk? Talk. Talk to me." "Forget it." "No, man, go on. One thing I hate, it's a silent Indian." For the most part, they carried themselves with poise, a kind of dignity. Now and then, however, there were times of panic, when they squealed or wanted to squeal but couldn't, when they twitched and made moaning sounds and covered their heads and said, "Dear Jesus," and flopped around on the earth and fired their weapons blindly and cringed and sobbed and begged for the noise to stop and went wild and made stupid promises to themselves and to God and to their mothers and fathers, hoping not to die. In different ways, it happened to all of them. Afterward, when the firing ended, they would blink and peek up. They would touch their bodies, feeling shame, then quickly hiding it. They would force themselves to stand, as if in slow motion, frame by frame, the world would take on the old logic. Absolute silence, then the wind, then sunlight, then voices. It was the burden of being alive. Awkwardly, the men would reassemble themselves, first in private, then in groups, becoming soldiers again. They would repair the leaks in their eyes. They would check for casualties, call in dust-offs, light cigarettes, try to smile, clear their throats, and spit and begin cleaning their weapons. After a time, someone would shake his head and say, "No lie, I almost shit my pants." And someone else would laugh, which meant it was bad, yes, but the guy had obviously not shit his pants. It wasn't that bad, and in any case, nobody would ever do such a thing and then go ahead and talk about it. They would squint into the dense, oppressive sunlight. For a few moments, perhaps, they would fall silent, lighting a joint and tracking its passage from man to man, inhaling, holding in the humiliation. Scary stuff, one of them might say. But then someone else would grin or flick his eyebrows and say, "Roger Dodger, almost cut me a new asshole." Almost. There were numerous such poses. Some carried themselves with a sort of wistful resignation, others with pride, or stiff soldierly discipline, or good humor, or macho zeal. They were afraid of dying, but they're even more afraid not to show it. They found jokes to tell. They used a hard dictionary to contain the terrible softness. Greased, they'd say. Offed, lit up, zapped while zipping. It wasn't cruelty, just stage presence. They were actors. When someone died, it wasn't quite dying because in a curious way, it seemed scripted, and because they had their lines mostly memorized, irony mixed with tragedy, and because they called it by other names as if to insist and destroy the reality of death itself. They kicked corpses, they cut off thumbs, they talked grunt lingo, they told stories about Ted Lavender's supply of tranquilizers, how the poor guy didn't feel a thing, how incredibly tranquil he was. "There's a moral here," said Mitchell Standers. They were waiting for Lavender's chopper, smoking the dead man's dope. "The moral's pretty obvious," Sanders said, and winked. "Stay away from drugs. No joke, they'll ruin your every day, every time." "Cute," said Henry Dobbins. "Mind blower, get it? Talk about wiggy. Nothing left, just blood and brains." They made themselves laugh. "There it is," they'd say over and over. "There it is, my friend, there it is," as if the repetition itself was an act of poise, a balance between crazy and almost crazy, knowing without going. There it is, which she meant, be cool, let it ride. "Oh yeah, man, you can't change what can't be changed. There it is, there it absolutely and positively and fucking well is." They were tough. They carried all the emotional baggage of men who might die. Grief, terror, love, longing. These were intangibles, but the intangibles had their own mass and specific gravity. They had tangible weight. They carried shameful memories. They carried the common secret of cowardice barely restrained, the instinct to run or freeze or hide, and in many respects this was the heaviest burden of all, for it could never be put down. It required perfect balance and perfect posture. They carried their reputations. They carried the soldiers' greatest fear, which was the fear of blushing. Men killed and died because they were embarrassed not to. It was what had brought them to the war in the first place. Nothing positive, no dreams of glory or honor, just to avoid the blush of dishonor. They died so as not to die of embarrassment. They crawled into tunnels and walked point and advanced under fire. Each morning, despite the unknown, they made their legs move. They endured. They kept humping. They did not submit to the obvious alternative, which was simply to close their eyes and fall. So easy, really. Go limp and tumble to the ground and let the muscles unwind and not speak and not bulge until your buddies picked you up and lifted you into the chopper that would roar and dip its nose and carry you off to the world. A mere matter of falling, yet no one ever fell. It was not courage, exactly. The object was not valor. Rather, they were too frightened to be cowards. By and large, they carried these things inside, maintaining the masks of composure. They sneered at sick call. They spoke bitterly about guys who had found release by shooting off their own toes or fingers. Pussies, they'd say. Candy asses. It was fierce, mocking talk with only a trace of envy or awe. But even so, the image played itself out behind their eyes. They imagined the muzzle against flesh, so easy, squeeze the trigger and blow away a toe. They imagined it. They imagined the quick, sweet pain, then the evacuation to Japan, then a hospital with warm beds and cute geisha nurses. And they dreamed of freedom birds. At night, on guard, standing in the dark, they were carried away by jumbo jets. They felt the rush of takeoff. Gone, they yelled. And then velocity, wings and engines, a smiling stewardess. But it was more than a plane. It was a real bird. A big, sleek silver bird with feathers and talons and high screeching. They were flying. The weights fell off. There was nothing to bear. They laughed and held on tight, feeling the cold slap of wind and altitude, soaring, thinking, it's over, I'm gone. They were naked. They were light and free. It was all lightness, bright and fast and buoyant. Light as light, a helium buzz in the brain, a giddy bubbling in the lungs as they were taken up over the clouds of the war, beyond duty, beyond gravity and mortification and global entanglements. Sin Lloyd, they yelled. I'm sorry, motherfuckers, but I'm out of it. I'm on a space cruise. I'm gone. It was a restful, unencumbered sensation just riding the light waves, sailing that big silver freedom bird over the mountains and oceans, over America, over the farms and great sleeping cities and cemeteries and highways and the golden arches of McDonald's. It was flight, a kind of fleeing, a kind of falling higher and higher, spinning off the edge of the earth and beyond the sun and through the vast silent vacuum where there were no burdens and where everything weighed exactly nothing. Gone, they screamed. I'm sorry, but I'm gone. And so at night, not quite dreaming, they gave themselves over to lightness. They were carried. They were purely born. On the morning after Ted Lavender died, First Lieutenant Jimmy Cross crouched at the bottom of his foxhole and he burned Martha's letters. Then he burned the 2 photographs. There was a steady rain falling, which made it difficult, but he used heat tabs and sternum to build a small fire, screening it with his body, holding the photographs over the tight blue flame with tips of his fingers. He realized it was only a gesture. Stupid, he thought, sentimental too, but mostly just stupid. Lavender was dead. You couldn't burn the blame. Besides, the letters were in his head, and even now, without photographs, Lieutenant Cross could see Martha playing volleyball in her white gym shorts and yellow T-shirt. He could see her moving in the rain. When the fire died out, Lieutenant Cross pulled his poncho over his shoulders and ate breakfast from a can. There was no great mystery, he decided. In those burned letters, Martha had never mentioned the war except to say, Jimmy, take care of yourself. She wasn't involved. She signed the letters love, but it wasn't love, and all the fine lines and technicalities did not matter. Virginity was no longer an issue. He hated her. Yes, he did. He hated her. Love, too, but it was a hard, hating kind of love. The morning came up wet and blurry. Everything seemed part of everything else, the fog and Martha and the deepening rain. He was a soldier, after all. Half smiling, Lieutenant Jimmy Cross took out his maps. He shook his head hard as if to clear it, then bent forward and began planning the day's march. In 10 minutes, or maybe 20, he would rouse the men and they would pack up and head west, where the map showed the country to be green and inviting. They would do what they had always done. The rain might add some weight, but otherwise it would be one more day laid upon all the other days. He was realistic about it. There was that new hardness in his stomach. He loved her, but he hated her. No more fantasies, he told himself. Henceforth, when he thought about Martha, it would be only to think that she belonged elsewhere. He would shut down the daydreams. This was not Mount Sebastian. It was another world where there were no pretty poems or midterm exams, a place where men died because of carelessness and gross stupidity. Kiowa was right. Boom down, and you were dead, never partly dead. Briefly in the rain, Lieutenant Cross saw Martha's gray eyes gazing back at him. He understood. It was very sad, he thought. The things men carried inside, the things men did or felt they had to do. He almost nodded at her, but he didn't. Instead, he went back to his maps. He was now determined to perform his duties firmly and without negligence. It wouldn't help Lavender, he knew that, but from this point on, he would comport himself as an officer. He would dispose of his good luck pebble, swallow it, maybe, or use least-strung slingshot, or just drop it along the trail. On the march, he would impose strict field discipline. He would be careful to send out flank security to prevent straggling or bunching up, to keep his troops moving at the proper pace and at the proper interval. He would insist on clean weapons. He would confiscate the remainder of Lavender's dope. Later in the day, perhaps, he would call the men together and speak to them plainly. He would accept the blame for what had happened to Ted Lavender. He would be a man about it. He would look them in the eyes, keeping his chin level, and he would issue the new standing operating procedures in a calm, impersonal tone of voice, a lieutenant's voice, leaving no room for argument or discussion. Commencing immediately, he'd tell them they would no longer abandon equipment along the route of march. They would police up their acts. They would get their shit together and keep it together and maintain it neatly and in good working order. He would not tolerate laxity. He would show strength, distancing himself. Among the men, there would be grumbling, of course, and maybe worse, because their days would seem longer and their loads heavier. But Lieutenant Jimmy Cross reminded himself that his obligation was not to be loved, but to lead. He would dispense with love. It was not now a factor. And if anyone quarreled or complained, he would simply tighten his lips and arrange his shoulders in the correct command posture. He might give a curt little nod, or he might not. He might just shrug and say, "Carry on." Then they would saddle up and form into a column and move out toward the villages west of Don Key. Okay, part of the presentation for today. Oh, wow, this thing was turned off? That thing working? Are you going to see a short video? Actually, not too short. The first 5 or 6 minutes is something I put together to welcome you to the college and to explain what the program is a little further. Okay, and to express a little bit of what we're going to do. And then you're going to see a film about Vietnam. And there is some rather disturbing footage here, but this is war, and this is what you're going to read about. Yeah, do you guys have any questions about the program or about what's expected of you? You want to ask us any questions? No? You ready for your first homework assignment? Cool. Read the rest of the book, and I expect a 25-page essay by Friday. Yeah. I know, we're going easy on them this time. No questions? Uh-oh. Listen up. All wars are meaningless. What did we gain from anything else? I mean, if you're fighting Syria, World War II was fighting against Syria. We didn't gain anything from it, though. Right? We lose a lot of lives. Excuse me? And Europe was leveled in World War II. It took 30 years to rebuild most places. Did you guys catch, though, what that news report was on? What was interesting about the Vietnam War, it was the first war they put on television. I mean, they show, I remember when I was a kid, in the 60s, Channel 2 had the news. Every night, they told you what was going on in Vietnam. You don't hear that now about the Iraq War, though. They don't want to let you know what's going Did you notice in that news report, the guy said that, 274 soldiers were killed in 1 week. And he reported that, 1 week. 274 soldiers. That's incredible. Say it again. Okay, do you want to go?
I think I'm going to need a microphone.
1, 2. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Okay. I know I'm hard to hear. This is just going to be a little brief introduction to the math component of the course. The first part of the course is going to be about statistics. And statistics has different meanings. Some of you may have studied a little bit as part of your high school courses. The actual current definition of statistics is a branch of mathematics that has to do with analyzing data, but sometimes there's some confusion because the word statistics, singular, means the data itself. I want to talk a little bit about the history of where statistics comes from. The word is from a German word that meant the study of political facts and figures, and it comes from the Latin word status, which means position or state. Now, in this case, the word state doesn't mean like a state in the United States. What do you think the word state means in this case? Anybody want to guess? In this case, the word state actually means government. So the word statistics actually comes from the Latin word for government. One of the first books about statistics was written in 1676, and it was called Political Arithmetic. And that was defined to be the art of reasoning by figures upon things relating to government. So statistics was originally something that was used for politics and for figures that related to government. So just keep that in mind as we think about, well, why are we learning statistics having to do with this book or about the Vietnam War? Well, there's a lot of different types of questions that can be answered with statistics. For instance, if you were a political scientist, what kinds of questions do you think you would want to know about the Vietnam War? Well, I thought about it a little bit. For instance, did the Vietnam War have any influence on the elections in 1968 and 1972? And did the activism by students in the 1960s have anything to do with the passing of the 26th Amendment? Does everybody here know what the 26th Amendment is? Or what was the 26th Amendment? No one wants to say what it is? Boy, people don't know much history. The 26th Amendment gave 18-year-olds the right to vote. Does anybody know when that was passed? 1971. I was in high school at the time, and believe me, everybody was watching what was happening with that vote. Because when I grew up, 18-year-olds could not vote. This is something that you take for granted because your whole lives you've always known that 18-year-olds could vote. When I was in high school, that wasn't the case. So that was big news back then. And I would venture to guess that the Vietnam War had a lot to do with that amendment. Some of the questions that I'd be interested in knowing is how many Americans served in the armed forces in Vietnam? Does anybody want to guess what they think the answer is? Actually, I don't know the total number, but it was a very, very large number compared to people in the military today. And in order to understand what was going on politically in this country, you might want to know, well, of those people, how many were volunteers, how many were drafted? What percentage were volunteers, what percentage were drafted? How old were these Americans who were serving in the armed forces? And was there a difference in the average age of the volunteers versus the average age of those who were drafted? And when I say the word average, what do you think I mean by average? Can somebody define what an average is? Okay, that's called the mean. Does anybody have another definition of average? Yes? Well, an average shouldn't be a guess. There's actually a mathematical definition for an average, but there's more than one definition. So that's one of the things that we'll be doing during the next 8 weeks is to figure out What is an average? Is it adding them up and dividing by the number? That's one way of taking an average. Or is it putting the numbers in order and looking for the middle? That's a different type of average called the median. Now, another question that I'm very interested in was, were there women serving in the armed forces? I know back then most of the women in the military were nurses. What percentage? And how does that compare with women who serve in the military today? Very different roles that women in the military were allowed to have during the Vietnam War compared to women in the military today. So I did some digging and I found some numbers, and I found that these were the actual numbers of troops in Vietnam from 1959 to 1973. Is it easy to read those numbers? Is it easy to see when was the highest number? Oh yeah, what year was the highest number? 1968. All right, well, suppose I take those numbers and write them in a table. Is it easier to see that now? Yes. All right, well, suppose I take those numbers, instead of writing them in a table, I put them in a bar chart. Now can you see right away at what point was the highest troop level? Yeah. And what happened after 1968? Went down. All right, so it looked like there was a steady increase until 1968, and then the troop levels went down after that. And can you tell approximately what the troop level was in 1968? Okay, how do you know that? Okay, so you're looking at the chart on the left, which clearly shows that it's between 500 and 600,000, but doesn't really clearly show just what that number is. So this is just one way to look at that data to be able to see how many people did we really have in the military at that time. This is another way of looking at the data. This is another way. This is an example of a line chart. All of this is the exact same data, only now, instead of having bars, I have lines. Can you tell from that what year was the highest troop level? Yes, 1968. How about this? Can you tell immediately what's the highest troop level from that chart? No. If you look at it for a while, you can see that it looks like the purple wedge is the largest wedge of the pie chart, and if you look at the legend on the right, it looks like that's from 1968, but not as obvious in a pie chart as it is in a bar graph. So I took that and I changed it into a three-dimensional view, and maybe a little bit easier now, but still I think the bar chart would probably be an easier way to look at it. So what I did was I took the same data, and instead of writing it out in a narrative form, I put it in graphical form, and there's 4 different types of graphs that tell you exactly the same numbers, but which of those is the easiest to read? The first one. So in this case, a bar chart would be the easiest way to see that data. So this is just a very brief introduction to what sorts of things we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at data. We're going to be looking at different ways to display the data, ways to find averages, and ways to analyze data based on the different types of charts. So I don't want to spend a lot of time doing math right now. When we come back next Wednesday, we'll be looking at these in a little bit more detail. Do you want to...
Okay, we have a guest here today. Ashley's a former student of mine, and he still attends Queensborough, and he's an Iraq War veteran. And he just wants to speak with you guys for a short while and maybe explain a bit about his experience over in Iraq and what it was like to be there. A lot of people are drawing parallels between what happened in Vietnam and what's happening now in Iraq. And maybe we'll find a little bit more about the things they carry, because I think Travis is going to help us out with that. Okay, guys, listen up. You want to get thrown out of the program the first day? At least make it to next week. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Travis Meyer.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing today? All right. It's to my understanding you guys are reading The Things They Carried. correct? And how far along in the book do you guys come? First chapter. Right on. I just got done reading that book myself last semester. Good book. Author Tim O'Brien talks about a lot of deep subjects in that book. How many of you guys like it so far? How many guys don't like it? How many guys don't care? There we go. Honesty. Nice. Yeah. That math never adds up. That's all right. The book's not for everybody. I thought it was a very good book. I hope you guys enjoy it as you read along. Which chapter did they read? They read the
Well, we read
first
the
one.
first one just about so we can see the balance between the psychological and physical burden.
Yeah. It's a good introductory chapter. Talks a lot about the tangible versus the intangible that the average grunt carries. Did you guys pick up on that? Both the instruments of warfare that we carry, and of course our own psychological burdens. Pretty deep, right? I thought so. A little bit of background on me. I'm also a fellow graduate of Francis Lewis. I graduated in 2004. I enlisted in the Marine Corps immediately after graduating at the age of 17. I did 4 years on active duty, was honorably discharged, and I did 3 combat deployments to Iraq. It's a lot for somebody who gets out at 21, right? In a 4-year period, real young. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I still think it's crazy. I don't know. But, after reading the book and looking back on my own thoughts and my own experiences, the author, Tim O'Brien, he gets pretty in there. He does a really good job about talking about that. To this day, I still don't know what was a bigger burden for me. The stuff that I carried around on my back, which was a lot. He talks about some of it. The gear's gotten a lot heavier since the late 1960s. I don't think they carried as much armor as we do. Of course, the physical danger wasn't as high as it was for guys like Mr. O'Brien. Some people who were alive during the Nam era will tell you they were bringing caskets home every week, whereas today I don't think combined Iraq and Afghanistan we've topped 5,000 KIA for U.S. troops yet. It's a lot smaller of a number than the Vietnam era. The danger is still just as real. Don't get me wrong, I've been pretty close to it myself. Had several occasions where I've seen combat. But, again, not as heavy as a war as Nam was. Anybody here got family members currently serving? Friends? Anything like that? How do you guys feel about reading this book? And thinking about who's got an immediate family member? Father, brother? Anything like that? Cousin? Good friend? Where is he serving? Right now? Which branch? How long you known your buddy for? How long you known your buddy for? 5 years? You write to him? That's cool. How'd that make you feel when he joined and he went over there? How'd that make you feel when he joined and he went over there? No, I'm saying, how did that make you feel when he joined? Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I did too. So I guess I could feel with him on that one. Oh yeah? A ranger? So I don't know. Did you want me to talk about some of the stuff? All right. I brought some things for you guys. Just a couple of the things that we carried out there, so I can give you kind of like like a show and tell kind of thing. No, there's no guns in here. This is PG. This is a magazine. That's the closest thing I got to the gun. But it's 30 rounds. Let's see. A full mag weighs about 1 pound. The unloaded M16A4 service rifle, if I got my math correct, is 8 pounds, 9 ounces. And you add this, that's another pound. So that's one of the things. I carried 12 of those on me personally. Just a set of prayer beads I picked up out there. They make for a good trading item. I don't know. We trade a lot of stuff, Zippos, prayer beads, stuff that we find around the way. So that's just something I took home. Thought it was kind of cool. This is a little, they got a sign that they fly out there a lot. They don't really, I guess Tim O'Brien touches on it a little bit in certain parts of the story. I don't want to ruin it for you, ruin the later chapters on, but I want you to remember this little saying here. They put it on signs all over the place out in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it says, complacency kills. Anybody know what complacency means? No idea? It's kind of like you say lazy, not caring so much attitude? Not paying attention. That's probably the best way to put it. It's when you go into la-la land and you lose focus of where you are at that moment. And, that's one of the big things that can get you killed out there when you got stuff like roadside bombs that are very hard to see. One of my actual job when I was in Iraq was to go out and safely remove roadside bombs. I wasn't necessarily a direct combatant, but what I did ended up saving a lot of lives out there. And it was, as you can imagine, it's a pretty dangerous job. So that was they call it a field specialty. So that's what I did, demolitions and counter demolitions. What's up? You got a question? You gotta, ride around inside one of those tanks, right? What's up? You gotta ride around one of those tanks and have a shooter at the top. Well, not quite. I mean, it depended on what year I was there. In 2005, I used to walk around the side of a road with a metal detector and a shovel. But in 2007, when the technology got a little bit better, you had companies like General Dynamics and Lockheed Martin working on stuff for us, and then we rode around in these big mine-resistant vehicles that had robotic arms on them. One of them was in Transformers. Anybody see that movie? Yeah, the one with the claw that was like rolling up and down the highway, throwing cars around. That gnarly thing? Yeah, that's what I rode in 07. 4-inch thick ballistic glass windows, titanium reinforced steel. I was safe in there. I got blown up in it. Felt like we ran over a speed bump. Yeah, that thing was good to go. I actually got a chunk of it in here somewhere. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. Feel that metal. Pretty dense, right? You feel pretty safe riding around with a thing made of this? No? What about you? Got some weight to it, right? Yeah, it's good stuff. No, the enemy took this off for me. I picked it up when it was on the ground afterwards. What's up? You got a question? What's up? That's the question you get the most. It's a funny question. The thing is, and I'm going to kind of answer that a little indirectly while keeping this PG. When there's about 12 or 16 Marines online, and you guys take fire from a building 250 meters out, and everybody returns fire, and you go into that building, and there's dead people in it, and nobody knows who killed them. Everybody pulled the trigger, though, so there's not it's not like Hollywood where, shoot the guy and the bad guy does like the little funky chicken and then he hits the deck, Yeah, it's not like Call of Duty. Good game though, right? Yeah, it's not like Call of Duty though. It's a totally different monster. So I'm just going to go through a few more of the things in here.
If you all have any questions while I do that, please.
Yeah. I don't mind answering questions. That's what I'm here for. Anybody else right off the... Go ahead. Oh, yeah. I mean, I never actually physically saw the guy ever shooting at me. But, you hear the whiz over your head or, the concrete, chips off the wall or whatever, That's about it. I mean, there was a funny saying that one of my range coaches told me when I was in basic training. And he said, and this was to get me on target. This was when I was learning how to shoot and everything. And he said, take your time, breathe deep, focus, get good sight picture, sight alignment. And he said, remember, you have the rest of your life to take that shot. And I said, wow, that's kind of crazy thinking about that in that kind of retrospective. And he said that the rest of my life was determined by how good of a shot the enemy was. So, it could be 4 seconds, 6 seconds, however good that guy was. And then I realized when I was in combat, the only guy who gets to spend that much time taking his shot is the first guy the first guy shooting in the firefight. So, I never had no 8, 10 seconds to sit there and aim and, shoot at somebody. But that always stuck out in my head later on. I don't know why. I still don't really get that saying. If you figure that one out, let me know. What's up? Was I scared? Everybody gets scared. It's that movie 300 said it really well. What the hell was the quote? When he says it's not necessarily fear that grips you, it's a heightened sense of things. You remember that quote in that movie? But that's exactly what it's like. The 300? Yeah, the Spartans, yeah. That's what he says, though. He says it's not fear that grips you, it's a heightened sense of things. And that's kind of what happens. As soon as that first explosion goes off or that first shot goes by, you get real alert right away and your training kicks in. So, you don't even really have time to sit there and get scared. It just kind of kicks in. Adrenaline, I guess you could say, What's up? Not really. No. An experience like that's going to change you no matter how hard you try to stay the same. I wouldn't say I'm I still think of myself as a pretty normal dude, but it definitely matures you, makes you grow up quickly. That's for sure. What's up? That's not Arabic is not an easy language to learn. I just learned little things like how to say what's up and stuff like that, Shaku maku. And then if you want to say not much, you say ishu maku or makushi, So, what's up?
My cousin was in the Marines, and she's a girl, but she said that she used to get punched in the face by the guys. Is that I'm being that serious? I was talking to her about it last night.
Well, you do a lot of martial arts training. Ask her about McMap. Does she got a green belt or anything like that?
I don't know. She was there for 4 years, too. She was in Kuwait 4 or 5 times.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, you do a lot of martial arts training, and, might have to get punched in the face. You might have to take a blast of OC spray to the face and then run through 3 green belt instructors or something like that. Depends on what level of the martial arts program you go through. It's just 3 months. 3 months at Paris Island. So, anybody ever see Full Metal Jacket? Yeah, that's where I went, Paris Island. Oh yeah, they got those reality shows now, right? Where they put the that's crazy to me. We didn't have that. We didn't have nobody with cameras following us around. But to put that kind of thing on TV, I don't know. It's weird. Reality TV, military training. I don't know. Oh yeah. Oh okay. Now I know what you're talking about. But yeah, no. I did see a few military train. They did one on the SEALs. It was through BUDS training or something like that, and they followed a whole class through. And I'm like, wow. I never thought that they'd put that on TV. What's up? Was I single when I went into the Marines? Yeah, I was. Negative. Nah. Yeah. Actually, my girlfriend's in the National Guard, actually. What's up?
I'll get you one question. Be respectful, please.
You're reading the book about a person who was an unwilling participant in a conflict, and now you participating in a war in which it was a volunteer experience, although a lot of people maybe go for a lot of different reasons. Do you see a difference in some kind of tone about the whole thing? Because I think the people that are portrayed here often didn't choose to go. Do you feel the difference with that, or do you have any comments on the differences, or maybe the sameness of that?
Well, I guess I couldn't really compare because I don't know anybody who was. Well, actually, let me backstep on that a little bit. I do know a few people who were. I guess you can call it a draft. Anybody ever hear the term stop loss? Anybody know what that means? It's kind of what they're doing instead of the draft nowadays. A lot of you guys might not know about it. Basically, guys like me, when I signed up, you sign up for an 8-year contract. You do 4 years active duty, 4 years on what they call inactive ready reserve. I'm on that right now for the next, since I got out in September of 2008, so yeah, I'm going to be on that for another 2.5 years. And during that time, during that 4-year period when you're done with your 4 years of active duty and you're just at home going to college or whatever, during that 4-year time, for whatever reason, if they want to, they can call you back up and put you on a deployment. You face the criminal charges of the UCMJ, and believe me, that's a lot more hardcore than civilian laws. You don't want to go to Leavenworth. Not good. But yeah, I known a few guys who, one guy in particular, he got recalled. He did 2 tours in Iraq, and they called him up. He's in Afghanistan right now, in Helmand province. I don't know, I never went there. So I guess I talked to him and a few times, and I asked him about his outlook on it. He says he doesn't care anymore. He's like, I'm going to do my 1 year that they told me to come out here for. I'm going to do the very least to just get by, and then I'm coming home. So they do give you like extra pay and stuff like that for it, but I guess it's not the same as the 70s and the late 60s with the draft, so I really couldn't give you a good comparison for that. But the volunteers today, I'll say this much, are a lot different probably than the volunteers back then as well. The volunteers back then don't have the kind of benefits that we do now. I mean, they're throwing all kinds of money at you for enlistment bonuses. They give you free college. Right now, I'm going to school here on the taxpayer's dollar. I didn't join because of that. I joined because I wanted to be a career military man. In fact, when I graduate, I do plan on going back in as an officer. But a lot of guys, they just join up for the free college. They join up for, whatever benefits. So volunteers today are not the same volunteers as when those benefits did not exist. I like to think that there was a lot more honor in what we did back in, the 40s or the 50s or the 60s. Now the military is a lot different. That's not to put down the guys who are serving now. I mean, the fight we're fighting now is a lot different from the fight we were fighting back then. There's a lot more opportunities for kids coming out of high school now, other than the military as well. Although as of lately, that's kind of changing. Go ahead. What's your question? Well, there's always going to be guys who just, want to be military men. There's a lot more than just me,
Yeah, no,
There's a lot of other. It's a career. Yeah.
And you hope there's no war. It's not like you want to go to kill people.
Yeah.
It's a career. It's protecting the nation. That's what you're doing. Protecting the nation. Job.
Pretty much. I didn't join up to go off to the Middle East. For me, I joined up to serve my country and to defend it. And if need be, and if I had to be called upon, I would go. So that's kind of my outlook. Go ahead. Who's got the question? Go ahead. Yeah. I did. Actually, I got a... Like, you're talking about personal effects, right? Just like little stuff from home and things like that? Yeah, I got one of them here. I gotta find it. Hope it's in here. There we go. I used to rock this in my helmet. It's just a very small folded up American flag. I used to keep that with me. I don't even remember where I got it from, but I don't know, I thought it was cool, so I used to wear it in my helmet. I guess you can call that imperialistic or patriotic, depending on how you look at that, but I used to like it. Go ahead. Yeah, it was really hot. Really hot. I mean, during the summer months when I was there in July, the hottest I'd seen it out there, and this was when we were sitting in the back of a cargo plane with, the fuel and the exhaust and the engine right there. But my friend had a digital thermometer, and we clocked it at 151. So, yeah, on an average day where you were doing foot patrol on the bank of the Euphrates River in the summer, it'd get up to about 130, 135. Mind you, you got a 60-pound flak jacket on you, a helmet, all this other stuff. It's hot. Well, they make sure that you drink a lot of water, you hydrate. You got to also take in a lot of electrolytes, salt. Because if you urinate too frequently, you're going to flush all the electrolytes out of your system, and you're just as in danger of becoming a heat casualty as if you weren't drinking water the whole time at all. So electrolytes are important, salt, stuff like that. Add salt to your food. Good. Say again? What is it? What do you put through your nose? The MPA? What does that stand for? Nasal pharyngelin? Oh, no, that's different. I did do that because I had to go through combat lifesaver course. What he's talking about is something you're supposed to use on an unconscious victim. We trained on each other consciously, but it's to create an open airway in the throat. If anybody is looking to go pre-med, you'll probably find about this later. But it's a tube that I think it comes in 12 and 14 gauge. I forget. But you're supposed to lube it up. You can't always do that. But you insert it through the nose, and it goes through your nasal cavity out into the back of your mouth, and it creates an airway in case you're unconscious and your throat gets lodged and you don't have time to do the Heimlich maneuver and all that stuff. So, yeah, that was fun. Thanks for bringing that memory back. Huh? No, but I did have a strong aftertaste of lube in the back of my throat for about a day or two. That sucked, not gonna lie. Not the worst thing I'd had to deal with, though. Go ahead. Oh, yeah. A lot of water. I don't know how many gallons I drink a day, but, I mean, we had, like, this thing. You ever tell you about Camelbacks? Like those little... Yeah, so, like, I must have drank, like, 6 to 8 of those a day, however much that is, you know. So, yeah, a lot of water, though. Go ahead, Professor.
I have a question. Since you're over there risking your life, did they let you have beer over there?
Nope. Actually, on the Marine Corps birthday, we did get 2 beers. But,
On the Marine Corps birthday?
On the Marine Corps birthday. No, not my own. No, they flow out, like, pallets of this stuff. And everybody gets to have 2. That's on the big bases anyway. If you're in the field and you're in the forward, you get like an MRE pound cake that you put an inverted cigarette in, and that's your birthday cake for the birthday. What's up? Oh, yeah. I quit smoking, though, as of a year ago. Gave that up. Very proud of that. I used to be a cowboy killer man, Reds. Yeah. But that stuff's no good for you. I recommend quitting. I'm sure you guys didn't start too long ago. And it's getting expensive, especially here. Go ahead. Hey, could you guys quiet down for a second? I'm trying to hear this question. What's up? How? Oh, depends. Depends what branch you go into. I would say my training, it was pretty rough. It was. I don't want to put down any of the other branches by saying anything, but the Marine Corps' training is pretty rigorous. If there's the saying that every Marine is a rifleman. So, I mean, they train you that way during your initial training. Afterwards, you go on to your job specialty schools. But, the Marine Corps training is pretty rigorous. It's not easy. They hold very high standards. Yeah, the initial basic training is 3 months. Then you go on to either the School of Infantry or Marine Combat Training. That'll be about 2 months. And then you go on to your MOS school, which could be anywhere from 2 months to a year and a half, depending on what your field specialty is. So, Depends. Go ahead. You have a question? Excuse me, guys. Go ahead. I don't know. I just always wanted to join the military since I was a little kid. I did a lot of research on all the branches before I went in, and I thought the Marines was the best choice for me. So, yeah, that's why. No, not one. Not one regret. Maybe that I would have paid a little bit better attention in high school. I'd be doing a little bit better now, but that's about it. I'm doing all right. Maybe in English, not in math.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, pre-cal's no joke. Yeah. Go ahead. You got another one? Okay. Pendleton? That's where I was. Yep. Camp Pendleton, 6-2 area. North side of the base. Camp Bedford? Camp Leatherneck? Are they called what? IEDs? Yeah, that stands for Improvised Explosive Device. And it comes in many different shapes, sizes, and forms. How heavy the... Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, the magazine. Well, it's got nothing in it. It's pretty light. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions? You got my brain to pick at for the next few minutes, so, I mean, before you guys go further into the book, if there's anything else. What's up? How much do I bench? Actually, I haven't been in the gym in a while. I work out at home, but I was at my prom probably about 245. That was a little while ago, though, so I don't know. I don't know what it is now. All right. I guess if you guys don't got anything else for me, I don't really got much else for you. One more question? What's that?
Shh, listen up, please.
Go ahead. Say again? Well, I'm going to do, I already got 4 years invested into the military system, so I'm going to do my last 16, get out with the 20-year pension, with the health benefits and the 50% top pay, and then I'm probably going to go into the field of forensics. And I plan on moving back out to California. That's what I'm going for with my degree is forensic science, so. It's a hard program if anybody tries going for that. It sucks. All right. Well, forget. All right, one more. Go ahead. I think we all do. All right, guys. It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope you guys, got some stuff out of this for the book. So, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I want to thank Travis very much for coming here and for sharing his experience with us.